Welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of maintenance here on this 1025R. It has about 160 hours on it. So even though we're not all the way to the 200-hour service interval, I figured, considering it's the first one, I might as well do that one early. Now the way I have this sitting right now is up on ramps on the back end, and then I have it on a stand, the center of the front axle. This is because I want it off the ground to be able to access the bottom easily, but I also don't want it on a slope because I would like it to be level when the fluid's drained. The bucket is not taking any of the weight right now. I just simply set it up that way to lift the front end up so I could put that stand underneath the front axle. But since I have the bucket just touching the ground, it is not taking any weight, and if anything were to happen, the bucket would still hold it up. So in order for you to pinch yourself in here, the hydraulics and the stand at the bottom would have to fail at the same time, so it's essentially redundant. This is my oil drain pan. I absolutely love it because the spout is located below the rim, so you never spill. I'll put a link to this if I can find it on Amazon. The drain plug takes a 17mm socket. I'm using a long-handled ratchet. That way I don't whack my knuckles when I crack this loose. Alright, so now we will remove the filter. Here is the replacement. Here is the oil. 0W40 synthetic. Here I'm using a 1-gallon pitcher to pour the oil in. I only need 2.9 quarts of oil. Then I'm using a funnel to get through the loader frame and then pouring the oil into the block like this. Now to change the fuel filter, you have to turn the valve off there, which stops the flow from the tank into the bowl. Take the nut off, holding the bowl onto the housing, which you will do by turning the nut clockwise. And then remove the bowl. Inside the bowl there's going to be a little red ring and a spring, so you want to make sure you get those back in there. This is how the new filter element looks. There's 2 in a box, but if you would just order one, obviously you'll just get the one. Now remember, this is the primary filter. The secondary filter is actually underneath the floorboards of the tractor, and we will get to changing that later. Make sure the spring and the floater in, screw on the bulb again, open the valve, and then to fill that, simply turn the key on, and that will turn on the electric fuel pump, which will fill the bowl. And when you start the motor after this, there's going to be a bit of air trapped in the system, but that will easily disappear. The first fire might stall out on you, but it just takes a little bit to get that air out. Changing the oil in the front axle. So this is the first drain plug here. Again, a long-handled ratchet comes in very handy for cracking loose those tight plugs. It's not a lot of fun to be using a short ratchet and then put your knuckles through something. So now I've pulled the dipstick out here, and that's why the flow became a lot quicker. There you might be able to see the oil is very silvery. It looks almost like Never-Seez. It is a 50-hour maintenance item to change this front axle oil. Now the axle is free floating, which means I can tip it to run the oil across to the other side. The way you fill the front axle is through the dipstick hole, but first you need to open a vent. So this is a 4mm Allen head. Hang on to that. Hy-Gard hydraulic oil. There we go. Now we will pour that into the dipstick hole. Now this is a bit of a tedious job. It is about -5 in the shop right now, and you're trying to fill a fairly complicated geometry with oil. So you're gonna have to stop every once in a while and let the air escape. Even with both venting plugs pulled out, it's gonna take a while to get that air out of the system. All right, we're gonna let that wait for a while and then top it up again. It's really not taking any more oil right now. So we're gonna switch and drain the transmission oil. Now some people would sit and wait for the transmission to drain 100% completely. But remember, if you run a loader or a backhoe or anything like that on this tractor, this oil will be mixed in with those implements, and it doesn't really matter whether you wait till it's completely stopped dripping or not. As soon as you use one of those implements, you're going to mix that old oil back in with the new stuff. So it is what it is as a consequence of having attachments. You can't really change that oil too. Alright, so now we're going to remove this 3-point hitch arm, get it out of the way. We're going to want to get at this bolt right here. This is a 6mm Allen head. There we go. So we got this out of the way. We didn't need to loosen the clamps or take this wheel off or any of that. Just have to loosen that bolt that holds it in place. Pop this out of the way. And here's the screen. It's kind of dirty, not terribly. We'll take this off and clean it up. There is a magnet here. That's why you could see those filings standing up on end. We'll put this right back in again. Put that Allen head in first. It's kind of corroded. Put a little dab of oil on the tip and then run that in like that. Once we get it started, the instructions say to put about 1/2 to 1/3 of the capacity of the oil filter in it before installation, which is going to be difficult to get it on without that spilling because it is a horizontal mount. Well, next time I'll hit record. The transmission oil filter is right here across from the drive shaft and above the drive for the lawn deck. Above the drive for the mower deck. It's right here. It's pretty easy to get off and on as long as you have a decent filter wrench. It's kind of low profile. Even one like this will work. Pop that off. Fill the new one about half full with oil. Get it popped on. And snug. They recommend about 1/2 to 3/4 turn after contact. That works good. Have the fill plug
back in the tractor all tight, so we're ready to dump the oil back into it. The filler cap is under the driver's seat. I've just cleaned up the area. Now I'm gonna start with a gallon of hydraulic oil. There we are at the top of the check, and it does say to check cold. So we're bang on with the oil there. Of course, after you change a fluid, it's good to check the level of it after a couple hours, especially the front axle. The front axle is a real pain to try to get full, just simply because the amount of air that gets trapped in it. Like I said, it's a complicated geometry to fill. So let's get this one done. That is the engine oil changed, the fuel filter changed, the transmission oil changed, and the front axle oil changed. They do recommend that you check the front axle oil and top it up after a couple hours of use. And of course, you always want to go back and double check for leaks. So now all that's left to do is the cleanup. Put everything away. You don't need many tools in order to do this job. The ramps, the stand, 17 millimeter, 13 millimeter, 6 millimeter Allen head, and that's about it. I'm still going to crawl underneath and grease the drive line, but there's no point in shooting any video of that. The main point was to show you how to change the fluids. So, thanks for watching.